is there's been a trend going around on TikTok predominantly, but it's caught in some, it's caught some heat on other social media platforms, and that is a trend of black people from the suburbs posting a picture, and the first picture will say, things I'm afraid to admit as a black person. Then you'll scroll to the next picture and it'll say, loud black people or ghetto black people make me feel uncomfortable. And so, as you know, the black community, we're always up in arms over shit, over social media trends and things like that. So this is just another thing that we're up in arms over. But I wanted to touch on it because you see this shit happen a lot, right? The first thing I want to say about the suburban black kids is that you might look at these people from the hood and they might make you feel uncomfortable, but you have to accept people from the hood because that is our culture, believe it or not. Now, again, I want people to realize as well that not everybody in the hood is a criminal. And so I think the reason why there's an uproar with this trend is because you have black suburban kids who have never spent a day in the hood kind of, passing judgment on these people from the hood as if they're all criminals. When if you go to any hood, for instance, you take a hood and you got 10 houses on that block, how many people or how many criminals you think is in each house? How many you think are actually in each house? So again, the media portrays that the hood is this, overran thing with criminals and that's all that's there. But there's grandmas, there's moms, there's dad, there's coaches, there's community leaders, there's pastors, there's all of these different things that we have in the hood that y'all got in every other suburb. You get me? It's just that we might have a higher rate of crime, but that is to do with us, but also to do with, the area we've been placed in and other things. So the uproar that people are having and the backlash that the black suburban kids are facing is that you guys are talking from a place of not really knowing, which is making you sound on some like white person shit, to be honest. That's what it's making you sound like. Because you should know as a black person that this is something that maybe you're not used to seeing, but you should never judge your own people when it comes to them just being them, right? I think that black suburban kids secretly envy hood people, and that's where a part of this trend comes from. Because when you have a black suburban kid and they see the black kid from the hood that has a freedom of expression, that has the creativity, that has the guts and the gall to say whatever they want, you know what I mean? Not give a fuck, stand on their 10 toes. They're not necessarily living within the lines that white America has created for them. And to be honest, I think a lot of black suburban kids, they envy that because they wish they could, wear their hair that certain way. They wish they could talk that certain way. They wish they could have that freedom of expression and be able to not give a fuck. But the black suburban kid, while trying to be black, still is somewhat thinking about how do I stay in between the lines to not offend anybody or to keep my chili coming, my money, you know what I mean, to not fuck up my business, etc. Right? So I think that's where the black suburban kid actually envies the kid from the hood. And that's where you get this trend. Now, on the flip side, do hood black people do some stupid shit sometimes? They do. That's another thing I want to take from this trend is that, like, come on now. Y'all niggas is up in arms and hurt and making it seem like black people do no wrong whatsoever. Come on now. We done been in brunches when you got females on the table twerking. I done been in establishments where niggas is stealing. I done been in, you feel me, restaurants and where niggas is smelling like weed to the point to where the whole room is smelling like it. So I done been places and seen niggas act like niggas. So let's not act like we don't be acting like that sometimes. Now, is it everybody that lives in the hood? No. And I understand that's where the flack comes from. But on the flip side, like I was saying, I think the hood black people envy the black suburban too. Because when you live in an impoverished area that's to a certain degree cut off from the rest of the world, because there's things that go on within the hood that don't go on nowhere else. Let's be honest, right? They got a lack of education, a lack of police aid, a lack of medical assistance, etc. The list goes on and on and on. So when you're coming from that area and now you're seeing a kid that is the same color as you, that's maybe a little bit more privileged, that maybe talks a little bit different, that maybe is oblivious to a lot of the struggles that Black Americans that live in the hood have because they don't live in the hood. Right? So this is also a problem with classism and you know, your income and where that places you. So I think a lot of hood Black people look at the suburban kids like, I wish I had that. I wish that I was automatically placed in this area to be able to have these opportunities, to be able to learn these things and grow like you. So I kind of envy you as well. You know what I mean? Because I wish I could go and do those things and get in some of these rooms, which they can. But obviously coming from that place, it feels harder, right? Even though it's definitely possible, it feels harder. So I think that's where the envy comes from the hood Black kid onto the suburban Black kid, is that they're like, man, you have no idea what, to a certain degree, you have no idea what really goes on for us as Black people because you're not necessarily being treated the same. And I might get killed for that. But let's be honest. Classism to a certain degree aids you and shelters you from certain stuff. Now, you're still going to, and again, I'm going to get killed for that, but you're going to still run into racism. You're going to still run into prejudice, all of those things. But if I live in the suburbs, I might walk outside to take my trash out and I might not see a cop. My neighbors might be waving. You feel me? I don't got niggas on my block and police circling my block trying to catch me up. You get what I'm saying? Where the kid from the hood, he might come outside same day, same time. He got shit all on his block. He got to deal with. He trying to walk to the corner store, and now he gotta look over his shoulder not only for the police, but for the niggas that live next door to him. So I think that is where that comes into play as well. But I think we both lose at the end of the day because we're fighting amongst each other, you know, and that is a problem. And I'm starting to think, I used to think that this term or this saying was goofy. The CIA dropped podcast equipment into the Black community to keep us further apart. But the more I get into the content game, the more I start to low-key believe that conspiracy. Because it's every other week that we have a new social media trend is Black people to fight over. Meanwhile, we're still not taking care of business when it comes to finances. We're still not taking care of business when it comes to our health, you know, and all these other things that I ramble on about and am a broken record about on this show. So that conspiracy starts to become a little bit more real, right? But at the end of the day, we both have to look at both sides and say, I can learn something from you, you can learn something from me. And I think that's where we should be at as Black Americans. If I'm in the suburbs, I can learn about expressing myself more freely. I can learn about my creativity. I can learn about my culture more if I pay attention and take something from Black kids in the hood. Black kids in the hood. You could learn something from kids in the suburbs, whatever that may be. Maybe that might be something an opportunity that you're not privy to because of where you live. Maybe that's to not react in a crazy emotional way and make certain mistakes that kids that are raised in the hood tend to make. So we could both learn something from each other. You get what I'm saying? As far as people trying to call the Black suburban kids white supremacists, I don't think that's what it is. I don't think these are white supremacist talking points at all. And the reason why I say that is because these kids from the suburbs or people from the suburbs that's Black, they not white. So how could they be white supremacist talking points? These people are not white. It's more so a class issue. We had this back during the Great Migration when there was people from the South moving to L.A. There was Black people in L.A. talking about we don't really want these people moving up here. We make this amount of money and we live here and we don't necessarily want it to be infiltrated. So this is a conversation more so of classism and how people would think that when they have money that it 100% gets rid of their race. Because that's what you're seeing with these Black suburban kids in this trend. A lot of it is the classism. Well, I live here. I have access to these resources and, we don't act that way over here and we don't see those things over here, And so that's a classism thing compared to more so of a racism thing. They think because of their economic income and where they're placed that they're better than somebody else, which is not the case. So, and I like this topic because when you really look at this topic, you could break it down into a show that we all love. When you look at the topic of the black suburban kids versus the black hood kids, you could go to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Perfect example for what we're talking about here. You have, and I'm gonna take the new one more so for example. You have Will, who comes from Philadelphia, a hard area where, you know, he's still a good kid, right? But he's lived in a hard area. He comes to Bel-Air, and this is the new kid, and he's black in a predominantly white school, right? But he has all the style. He has the guts, again, and the gall to say shit. He stands on his 10 toes. He has the freedom of creativity and expression. And it comes natural to Will because of where he's raised and the culture he's been immersed in since a jit. You got Carlton, on the other hand, who has grown up in a different class than Will. He didn't grow up in an impoverished neighborhood, right? In the new Bel-Air. He grew up in Bel-Air, going to Bel-Air High School, a private school, all these different things, right? Dad's a defense attorney. Mom is rich. Everybody is good. It's a different scenario. He's grown up around white people his whole life. So he struggles at times, and at times he offends Will because Will doesn't understand where this guy is coming from because Will's from a worse area. So to him, this is the way things work. And there's times where Carlton doesn't understand Will because he's like, I don't come from that walk of life. So they bump heads a lot. But that is a perfect example of the black suburban kid and the hood kid. And I think what they envy about each other. Because you'll see a lot on a new show, Will envies Carlton because he has certain resources, certain people backing him. He has certain just traits and characteristics about himself that maybe Will was never privy to because of having a 2-parent household and a great economic situation. And then look at Carlton. There's moments where Will is praised by Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil in the new one, right? And the school takes him on, the Black Student Union. They want Will to be the leader, etc., because he has that effortless blackness about him that Carlton wants. So he envies that. So I'm only using that as an example to show people what this trend is and, you know, verbatim what it is. It's both people are black, but being jealous of each other for what they don't have. And instead of saying, you know what, I'd rather take a walk in your world, take a walk in your shoes and learn something for a second. Instead, I'm going to judge you. I'm going to shit on you. Because I don't understand. I'm going to react out of fear instead of trying to understand and move forward. But again, we all lose at the end of the day because it's another thing we're just arguing over. Black people, we got to get it together. We got to stop arguing over social media topics that are bullshit. And you know what? It's even okay to argue a little bit, but to drag on topics for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, y'all niggas is losing friends and mad at your coworkers because somebody don't like a certain thing. We get too up in arms about shit that means nothing. Black people, we have to stop doing that. It's just not a good look. Not a good look. And we gain nothing from it besides a high blood pressure. That's it.